Sorry I'm late, Chip. You know how it is sometimes. I got caught talking to a magician. Lost his magic, though.
Yeah? What was his name?
Well, they call him Ian now. Anyways. Gosh, I do love a murder mystery.
Well, fortunately today, we have one of the most high-profile cases at the moment. The murder of a French TV producer, Sophie Toscan du Plantier.
Gardaí have arrested two people in connection with the murder of Sophie Toscan du Plantier in West Cork. The two, a man and a woman, are being questioned at Bandon Garda station. The man was arrested this morning. The woman was detained this afternoon.
It's an obsession for every victim, everywhere in the world.
Gardaí are treating as suspicious the death of a woman whose body has been found in a remote area in County Cork.
A suspect, an arrest, a media frenzy.
There's a frightening state of affairs that he would die in a French jail.
You might have seen this or heard about it on the platform Netlfix.
Netlfix, we're still waiting for this to go off. If you need us to be doing any...
Yeah, if you want to get hold of us, we'll probably plug it in.
Do you know what, Netflix? It'd be going to be funny because you're going to watch this and you're going to think, our documentary was Can we say that? Is that okay?
It's a bit more professional.
Okay, sorry. You'll prefer this episode. Oh.
Let me set the scene for you, Detective Freezy.
Go ahead.
23rd of December, 1996. Sophie is murdered in cold blood at a holiday house near County Cork. And County Cork, of course, is a place of Ireland.
Of Ireland?
Yeah.
Or in Ireland?
In Ireland, of Ireland.
This particular place in Ireland is known for its sort of like legends and mythologies, and it's got lots of like fantasy. It's a very romantic place. Now, you think, in Ireland there'd probably be a lot of Irish people, but in this particular place in West Cork, it is actually known to have a lot of international people that go there. So people from abroad, England, places in Europe, France, they come, and when they move to Ireland or they get a holiday home in Ireland, they tend to get it in West Cork. And it's become this popular place for expats to go to. And that's exactly what Sophie was. She had a holiday home here in West Cork.
So when she comes to a holiday home in Cork, she likes to leave, the glamorous life that she lives in Paris behind. Alice in Wonderland kind of vibes.
Okay.
You seen that movie?
Yeah, it is a personal favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm. And since she was a TV producer, she actually wanted to make a show or film on bodily fluids. I'm talking like breast milk, blood, sperm, bile.
Oh, lovely.
I don't.
It's not something that I would make a series about.
Yeah.
But it shows that she definitely had this maybe more gothic side to her. But it's safe to say that, yeah, she liked going to Ireland, to this little place in West Cork. She had a nice house. It was a very when you see the house, there's video footage of it, and it just looks quite like creaky, old, secluded. Personally, not a holiday home for me. Yeah. But it's what she was into, and it sort of does match her personality quite well.
I did see it, and it looks like there was no central heating.
Sophie, TV producer, lived a very glamorous lifestyle in Paris because she was married to Daniel, who was very, very well connected in Paris. He knew the prime minister over there, or the president, I think they call him over there. And yeah, just a real elite of Paris.
Yeah.
You get that vibe.
What are we talking, like New World Order vibes?
Oh, I don't know. Well, there are some thoughts about it potentially being him, but we'll get a little bit into that. But yeah, she definitely had a very different life that she would live in Paris compared to the one that she went to her holiday home in Ireland. The death. This is the 23rd of December, 1996.
Yes.
And Sophie was found at 10 a.m. dead, just nearby her house, a little bit further down, by a gate, and she was really badly injured, to the point where her neighbor couldn't actually even identify it was her. She was found in her nightwear, so pajamas, things like that, which, sounds a little bit like, was she taken out of the house? Did she just have to nip outside to go and do something, and then something happened? So there's lots of different things there, because the keys were actually found in the back of the door. So I don't know. There's a few theories about what happened there, but yeah, she was found with some horrendous injuries, and when the pathologist turned up, took a look at her, there were terrible lacerations. There was a lot of blunt force injuries as well, which could have suggested that she was hit over the head with a bit of concrete that was found to have a bit of blood on it nearby. There was also some blood on the gate as well. There were some thorns, like some real thorny bushes nearby, and that actually comes into play later when they start talking about the different suspects, because whoever did do this got their hands dirty while doing this. Which is interesting because the lack of forensic evidence in this case is pretty alarming, and yeah, I mean it wasn't a pleasant way to die. Put it that way.
No.
It was violent.
They've done the autopsy, and it's revealed she's had around 50 injuries. Her face has been battered with a concrete block. Her fingers are all broken and stuff, probably because she's actually trying to defend herself.
Yeah.
She's ran through briars and then even believed to be barbed wire.
Yeah, so like briars are just like thorny branches.
Like bushes, like not nice.
Yeah.
And also they actually found some DNA at the scene, some blood. And this is the craziest bit. It's not Sophie's.
So whose is it, Chip? End the mystery right now. Whose blood is it?
They don't know. Unfortunately,
what do you mean they don't know? There's blood at the scene.
Well,
That's not Sophie's.
This happens more often than we would like. Obviously, because it's back in the day, they needed more than a teaspoon of blood to identify whose blood it was. Unfortunately, they didn't have that, so that's why we're here to try and solve this case. There was also even like a footprint, like a foot mark, but nothing's really come from that. You'd like to think that maybe they'd be able to identify which boot or maybe something like that, but
or even a shoe size.
Yeah, or even a shoe size. But unfortunately, for some reason, bit of a dead end. Yeah. Quite annoying.
The key's in the back of the door. I'll be perfectly honest with you, Chip. It gives off the suggestion that potentially, the door was open and then it was closed behind her. And so, like, did she step out and then the door closed behind her? Was she dragged out and then someone shut the door? Like, I don't really understand why the keys are in the back of the door.
Well, that's what I would imagine. Like, she's maybe gone to answer the door. Maybe it's a face that she's familiar with. She's opened it. It's obviously late night. Maybe a bit confused. She's been dragged out. The keys have just been left.
And the door closes.
The door closes.
I don't know.
Maybe the murderer actually comes back to the house and closes the door, but doesn't know that the keys are in there.
What about some fingerprints then? You see what I'm saying? Or the gloves?
You mentioned the second glass of wine, wine glass. Maybe she was sharing a glass of wine with someone. She's opened the door to let him out. Boom. It's all gone crazy there. Yeah.
I don't know. That is it is interesting. Not only that, but in her bedroom, the way that she had her bed set up was that because there was a lighthouse in the distance and it would constantly shine light, and Sophie was sort of known to really enjoy that particular view. But what a lot of people said though was that you could easily either be stalking or observing her in her bedroom just because of the way it was set up.
She had no.
There was no privacy. There was no privacy. So if someone was like a bit of a weirdo, a bit of an oddball, they could definitely have been staring there, just being a total creep. The wine glasses, there was no fingerprints on those except for hers, so they didn't really have much to work off, to be fair.
Yeah, and there was also actually no sign of forced entry at the house, so she has willingly opened that door.
Yeah.
Again, maybe a familiar face through the peephole or something.
Yeah, someone she's seen before. But then again, you're out in the States here. There seems to be, there hadn't been a murder here in years, like donkey's years. So it's one of those things where you probably feel safe opening the door at any time to anyone, really.
Yeah.
Like, you're out in the sticks. It's a friendly community. Everyone sort of knows everyone.
Tight knit.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be unusual to open the door to maybe even a stranger,
Mm-hmm. This case has attracted a lot of media attention. Like you already said, this is the first murder in Cork for a very, very long time. And the police have started tracking everything that Sophie's been doing since December 20th, which was when she arrived in Cork Airport. Now, there was a reporter who was, publishing stories on this, and he seemed to know quite a lot, more than people expected. His name was Ian Bailey, and he actually published a report on this called Tangled Love Life on December the 28th, which gave people the impression that he knows quite a lot for him to, for that title, Tangled Love Life.
This guy, by the way, it's important to note that he didn't necessarily cover this sort of stuff very much. He was mainly into like poetry,
Yes, he
gardening, things like that. So this was a little bit out of his realm, but he was considered to be a journalist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know, I guess you probably, if you were a journalist and a murder had just happened where you are,
live, yeah.
even if it's something that you're not necessarily usually do, why not? It's probably the biggest thing that's happened there in a long time. So a lot of people where they're like, why is he writing so much about this one? But ultimately, like, regardless of what anyone says, like, it's a big thing to happen.
It is a big thing, and if you want to stop writing about gardening and
maybe you wanted a break from the gardening tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Ian Bailey actually proposed the theory that it could have been either Daniel, her husband at the time back in Paris, or even Sophie had an ex-lover, right? And you know, was it either one of those two? But both of them had alibis at the time, so it was safe to say it wasn't going to be them. But what if, he said, they had gotten a hitman to do the job? Now this seems pretty extreme.
Why would he get a hitman though?
Well, first of all, someone else can do the job. Second of all, the motive could have been was one of them going to get the money for it? Was there, financial benefit to Sophie being killed? But the reason why the hitman theory just doesn't really add up is because the way that she was killed was used from like weapons of opportunity, meaning that there was no weapon brought there. There was really no plan here because she would just hit in the head with a concrete. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, mate. If you're hiring a hitman and the hitman says, yeah, I'm just going to rock up there, I'm just going to find what's around, and then I'm just going to hit her over the head with whatever object is closest to me. I'll be honest with you, mate, you have hired a pretty terrible hitman.
You've hired one from Gumtree. Ian Bailey kind of pushed that theory out in the idea that if Daniel and Sophie were to get divorced, which was rumored would be happening, she would take half of his estate.
Yeah.
Which, kind of stands up a little, but there's nothing else really holding it up at all.
Naturally, the police were on the hunt for some suspects. It was time to find the person that did this.
We are doing house-to-house visits, and we have extended questionnaires.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that was in the crime scene were those little thorns, the briars, things like that. So it would have suggested that this person would definitely have some sort of cuts or injuries on their arm. Could that potentially lead you to the person that did this? Now, remember the reporter, Ian Bailey?
Oh, yes.
He was said to have had cuts on his hands. Now, when he was questioned about this, and he was asked, what's up? How come you had cuts all over your hands and things? His excuse, or it was so he claimed, is that he climbed a tree and went to cut off the top of the tree for a Christmas tree. Obviously, this is a few days before Christmas. Yeah. So, I mean, that would make sense.
I did it all the time.
What, you just climb trees and cut it off?
No.
No. Okay. Well, according to Ian Bailey, that's exactly what he did. Not only that, but there was also like a bit of a cut on the top of his, on his forehead, and he claimed that was from when he was holding it. He was holding a turkey, right?
Yeah.
And it nicked him in the forehead.
Cap.
As he was doing the cat.
This could be complete cap. So his excuses were he's climbed the top of a tree to cut a Christmas tree.
Yeah, and he's got scratches in the branches and all that.
Okay, what in December? Why is he doing it so late into December? December 23rd.
He's doing it a couple of days before Christmas. He wanted a fresh Christmas tree.
Gotta get that stuff up on December 12th, lad. So
I'm not gonna lie, Christmas tree goes up at the beginning of December.
Yeah.
No earlier, no later.
You don't put it up on 23rd, 24th of December.
He's left it far too late.
And I guess he's cooking his own turkey and he's killing his own turkeys.
I mean, I guess so.
And the turkey's gone.
Have that. He's leaving his mark on the world before he gets eaten on Christmas dinner.
That wouldn't have happened to me because first of all, I would straight blocked it.
Yeah, you're quick with it though.
I would have blocked it.
Ian Bailey's not got that in him, bro.
No, of course
Show
not.
that one more time. Let me see the technique. Yeah, no way you're getting
No problem.
nicked.
Pretend you're a turkey right now. Are you coming at me?
I've got you.
No. You're faster than a turkey.
I am faster than a turkey. You're right. Just to add to that, to be honest, Chip, is there was a forester that said, "Look, guys, you don't get those sort of wounds. You don't get those sort of injuries from a tree like that."
Oh, he knows.
So this guy knows the trees. He said, "Look, mate, that's cap."
Yeah, that's cap.
At this point, Ian Bailey is looking a little bit sus right now. The police are onto him.
Yep.
And what is interesting is the fact that when he was asked about did he know Sophie at all, he completely denied it. He said, never met her, right? But there are plenty of other people in the town that say he has met her. He has. So it was definitely some contradicting stories going around, or some contradicting statements going around.
Suspicious.
Yeah, that made it seem like Ian Bailey had actually met her previously.
Don't be suspicious.
One of the people that claimed Ian Bailey had actually met Sophie previously was a guy called Guy Gerard. Right? Now, he said that she had told him, I'm going to go and meet this writer. And in this little town, Skull, what a cool name for a town.
Skull.
Skull. In a town called Skull. There's not that many people there, so the chances of that being Ian Bailey were probably pretty high.
This is where things get a little bit interesting. 11th of January, sometime after the murder, the police have received a phone call by a woman called Fiona. Now, important to note, your favourite saying, that she did call up from a phone box, so not from her own phone.
My mum's called Fiona.
Really? She is a...
Do you reckon my mum was the one that called them? But she's not, to be fair, I don't think she lives in Skull, so...
Oh, I hope not.
No, I don't think it was her. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Anyway, she's seen a man at Kelfarda Bridge at 3 a.m. on the day that Sophie was murdered. Pretty interesting stuff, right? And he was in a drunken state. He's waving his arms around. Anyway, she's called a second time the day afterwards from another call box as well, and then a third time on the 24th. But on the third time, she has called from a home phone in Skull, and her name was Marie Farrell.
What did you see on the night of the 25th of December?
I was driving from Goleen to Skull, and I saw a man walking along the bridge just along here. He appeared to be in a drunken state and waving his arms around.
Bang.
Okay, so the police actually managed to be able to track it, because it wasn't from a payphone.
Once she's made it from her home phone, obviously things are different. They've tracked it. They've gone to her home, and Marie
So it wasn't Fiona then. So it wasn't my mum.
No,
we can write off my mum.
Unless your mum is
Marie Farrell. She isn't.
You do look similar.
Me and Marie, I'm not too sure. I do look like Marie.
And the ages match up.
Later in January, Marie was actually in a supermarket, just getting on with her business, buying some bits and bobs, and she sees the man that she saw at 3 a.m. at Kelfarda Bridge.
Okay.
Right? And she looks up and she sees him. She goes straight to the police and she says, that's the guy that I saw at 3 a.m. on the night that Sophie was murdered.
Ooh.
And who was that man, Chip? Let me tell you.
You tell me who that man was.
That man that she pointed out was in fact Ian Bailey. This is massive. This is huge. There is someone that can place Ian Bailey at a certain location, which, by the way, Kelfarda Bridge is very close to Sophie's home at 3 a.m. Okay, so that is massive. Back then as well, technology wasn't where it is now, so witnesses were crucial. They were so important, and this was the most important witness in this case.
It's crucial. Like you said, it's like a remote, small little village. Who's going to be out at 3 a.m. just round the corner from Sophie's house, and she gets murdered?
Exactly.
It's all adding up a little bit.
You know what? It's not looking great for Ian
It isn't looking good. It isn't looking good. Investigators even said as well when they found the body that the body had been out for some hours. So that timeline is kind of lining up pretty well.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a strange one. The 26th of December, which is obviously 3 days after the murder, Ian Bailey has gone round the back of Sophie's house, which is still cornered off, by the way. Yeah. So I'm talking tape. It's a crime scene.
But you know what they say? Killers... They like to go back. They want to see it.
And he's gone back for such a weird reason. He's gone back to drop off some milk to a man called Alfie Lyon. And Alfie has not even asked for this milk. So he's just turned up and been like, all right, Alf, got you this milk, by the way. Conveniently just had to go around the back of Sophie's house trying to get a peek.
Trying to get another look at it. Whatever it might be, because it's important to note that he actually did arrive at the scene. He was actually one of the first people on the original scene. He was there early doors, but he wants to then go and revisit. It's almost like he wants to keep checking up on this crime scene that Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Who knows? But yeah, I just think that is a little bit weird. I mean, ultimately, Alfie never asked for the milk.
Very, very odd. And he's just tried to play it off as like a nice gesture, like, yeah, I brought you this milk. Which you don't want.
Mate, you've
what
never
if
brought me
Alfie's
milk
got
before.
4 bottles, 4 cartons of milk, and he's topped up? He just bought them from the shop that morning.
Even worse. Imagine.
Now the milk's going to go off.
Imagine he turned up and it was skinny milk, red milk, and you only drink the green.
Yeah, I never would drink the red.
Don't tell me you drink red milk, mate. That's disgusting. The day after the milk delivery, the milk delivery, on the 27th of December, the police actually questioned Marie. And they managed to find out that actually Sophie had been in Marie's shop on Saturday the 21st at around 3. And Marie said that when Sophie left the shop, she noticed that there was a man that was standing outside of a butcher's that ended up sort of following. It looked like he was following Sophie home. And she's unable to identify who that man might have been.
Some sus behavior.
Maybe another
Seems
suspect.
like Sophie had someone stalking her for a few days before then. Like, that's what suggested her.
Maybe not one of the on the night someone just murders it. Potentially planned.
Yeah, potentially a bit more planned than
you would think. Yeah, exactly. And at this point, the police had over 54 suspects at the start. Right, they had 54. They managed to whittle it down to 10 suspects. Ooh. So they're narrowing it
Getting
down.
Somewhere.
Ian Bailey, he's still in the top 10 though.
Yeah, he's still in the mixer.
He's in the mixer. He's looking like hot property right now.
Mm-hmm. Ian Bailey was actually writing a story about a lady called Yvonne Ungerer who lived at Free Castle's Head. Now, she had seen Sophie the Sunday before she had died and said that Sophie had had a strange experience. Now, this castle that Yvonne lives at is meant to be haunted by a female ghost, the White Lady.
What's interesting about this is that there is a real sort of like legend around this particular castle and this haunted ruin, right? Is that when you go there and if you see this white lady, in the hours that follow, you will die a violent death. Now, this sort of myth or legend, whatever you want to call it, considering Ian Bailey was writing a story about it and about the Yvonne Ungerer, is it a case of, did Ian Bailey want to make this more true than it already was?
That's not.
Did he want to like live out this mystery or this myth? Did he want to make it seem more real than it actually is? Mm-hmm. Has he seen her or heard that she went there and then went, you know what, I'm going to make this myth, this legend, seem really real, and people are genuinely going to fear this castle if I do this?
Yes, well,
do you know what I mean?
In the community, it said that if any Irish person would have known that this had happened, they wouldn't have let her go home alone that night.
If the Irish person had known that she had visited and seen the White Lady, they wouldn't have let her go home.
Yeah, that's how serious and how they take this myth, you would call it.
Because the Irish felt so strong about it, it sort of helped eliminate quite a few Irish people from it as well. And it sort of allowed people to focus more on those international, those expats that were living there. So, it's a good bit of, it's an interesting thing just how much value people really do place on these legends and these myths. And Ian Bailey's a writer, right? He likes to fantasize. He likes to believe in these wild things.
Was he trying, like you said, was he trying to make his story look like it was real?
Yeah.
Sophie dies a violent death after she's seen the ghost, which he's writing a story about. And the whole idea is when you see the ghost, you die a violent death.
And it's safe to say it was violent.
Ian Bailey, if we just touch on him a little bit more here, a couple more details. So he's born in 1957 and he's actually from one of the greatest places on the planet, I might say. He's actually from Manchester.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So he's changed his name as well. So he's gone by Ian Bailey. It's actually Owen. His first name is actually Owen. Now, people say he changed his name to try and maybe fit in more with the Irish community, who's a little bit of a poet.
Well, he fantasized about being this Irish poet, right?
Exactly. So, bit strange. It's like he kind of wanted to live a different life than what he had.
Yeah.
He's born in England. He's moved to Cork in 1991.
Yeah. And he's just keen. He's keen to fit in. He's keen to have this image around him of this very romantic, poet.
Yeah.
There's a real vision that he had here of himself living in Cork, in Skull, being this poet. Now,
it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it?
no, I mean, look, if that was all his background was, then, so be it. But he's not the nicest bloke, shall we say, because he was actually involved in several incidents of domestic violence against his partner, who goes by the name Jules Thomas. And she had actually been hospitalized really badly in 2001, where he actually ended up getting convicted of assault in the courts, which is, if you needed proof that the guy, wasn't morally the best bloke and had maybe just been, wrong place, wrong time, he definitely did have a dark side to him for sure. And not only that, but here's a little list of something a psychiatrist actually said that he had. Personality constructed on narcissism, rigidity.
God knows,
rigidity? Mate, I don't even know. Rigidity, psycho-rigidity. Look, we're going with that.
Yeah.
Violence, impulsiveness, egocentricity, and with an intolerance to frustration and a great need for recognition. Now, anybody that has watched the Netflix documentary, you'll see him, you'll hear him in interviews, and he loves talking to the camera. He loves the attention. Mm-hmm. He is desperate to talk about this whole thing. And that's a little bit weird considering how much stick he's gotten for it and how much of a prime suspect he is. But he just loved the attention.
It's like he wants to be a star, like the star of the show. He wants everything to revolve around him, even if it comes at the cost of him being the prime suspect of, such a horrible murder.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, that list there was pretty extensive, but, just from hearing him talk in the way, he just gives you a creepy vibe. When I was watching it, I was there like, this guy just is so unsettling to listen to. And with everything that sort of lines up, it just makes you think this guy is just, there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, people described him as like a very large bloke. When he entered the room, it was a very strange atmosphere when he walked in. He would just, sometimes in the pub, just start belting out poems. So you're just sat there, you're enjoying a nice pint. You're enjoying it, You're talking to your mate about football. Then you've got Ian Bailey in the corner singing about sparrows and pigeons. Some people have said in the Netflix documentary that the poems are not the greatest.
Yes, no, there was definitely some talk about him being a bit sus.
There's a bit of slander on his poems.
There was plenty of chat going around the town because Ian Bailey would say some pretty interesting things, shall we say, to a few members of the community. Now, I'm going to read a few of these things out to you, okay? This is what he said, okay? He said to an editor that by committing the murder, he reignited his career, okay? He said to friends that he had gone too far to them. So he was talking about the murder. He said he's gone too far. And then what he said to a local teenager was that I went up there and I smashed her brains in with a rock. Okay, Chip, does any of that come across as dark humor?
Not really. Because
that's exactly what Ian Bailey claimed when he was questioned about these sort of things that he was, almost confessing to, right? He's gone and said, "Oh no, it was just dark humor." Like, I'm sorry, mate. What about by committing the murder, he reignited his career?
That's crazy. This is pretty compelling stuff. Like, there's multiple people here coming in with statements that Ian Bailey has confessed to them. Even a local teenager. Like,
there's no reason for these guys to lie.
There's no motive for them to come up and be like, unless the entire community is hatching a plan to frame Ian Bailey, which seems very unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, these are all just different accounts of supposed confessions that he had made. And he just denied them, claiming they were all dark humor.
Ian's friend has obviously been hearing all these rumors that are going round about Ian. Obviously, he's gone and thought about, I should probably go around to Ian's, let him know everything that's being said. As a friend, you would do that. Yeah. So he's gone round to Ian's house, and Ian has straight away got extremely mad. And I'll quote here Bailey's exact phrase, as we'll call it. So he goes, "You fucker. You saw her in Spa the day before she was killed. You saw her tight ass and wanted to give her one. When you went to her house at 2 a.m, she ran away screaming because you scared her. You chased her, threw something at her head, and realized you went too far. So that is absolutely mental, but he's come up with that straight off the dome, straight in the spot.
By the way, this is, just so everyone's completely clear, this is Ian then switching things and blaming it on his mate.
Yeah.
And coming up with that entire story, like you said,
On
just
the
fresh
spot.
off the dome.
To me, that sounds like Ian Bailey knows exactly what went down.
Yeah.
He spun it around, and it's like he's retelling the story, but from his friend's perspective.
Yeah.
So
And blaming it on his
That to me
mate.
sounds like Ian Bailey's story.
Yeah.
And he's just saying his mate's done
it.
that.
And
Yeah.
that whole thing, just like it all lines up, it all makes sense. Like, that could very well have been exactly what happened there.
Yeah, that like the words he's using, like it paints a very strange picture about this man.
The interesting bit here is that it says right at the beginning of the thing, it says, you saw her in Spa the day before she was killed. Now, do you remember what the Marie lady said?
Yes.
She saw Sophie leave and someone was following her down.
Yeah.
Now, this might have not been the exact same instant, but this could have happened a couple of times. And so...
And wasn't that just a day or two before the murder?
Yeah, it was.
Ooh.
So the story is, it's coming together a little bit like this right now, Chip. Like that.
Couple months after the murder, for the first time they've made serious progress, Ian Bailey has been arrested on the 10th of February 1997. And his partner, Jules, was also arrested.
It's important to note, Ian and Jules were actually questioned completely separate from each other. So that obviously helps when it comes to, coming up with a story together, making sure they both had everything aligned. Because what Jules said is not exactly what Ian said. Ian changed his story a few times. In fact, Jules said that they had been at a pub on the night and that they'd left at about 12:30. And on the way home, they stopped off at a certain place and they could see that the neighbor's lights, Alfie, remember Alfie? The milk that was delivered to Alfie.
Alfie and the milk.
Yeah, so they wanted to actually go over to Alfie, see if there was a little party going on there, a little afters, whatever it might be. But they said that they got just like a little bit of a bad feeling about the whole thing. So they ended up just going back to bed. And yeah, they went to sleep and that was that. Then, later, Jules actually says, hold on a second, I actually reckon my husband Ian got up in the middle of the night.
Ooh. What for though?
Well, what would you be getting up in the middle of the night
Cocoa
for,
Pops
Ian?
and milk?
Or that does slap as a midnight snack though. She didn't actually see Ian until 9 a.m. when he came back with coffee. Yeah, here you go, sweetheart. Rise and shine. I've just been I've just been writing some poetry. That's all I've been doing. I haven't been up to anything I shouldn't have been doing. I was just writing some poetry. That's it.
Yep, but here's your pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks.
I don't think they had Starbucks out there. Jules did also notice the scratch on his head, and she said that she was certain that that scratch wasn't actually there when they went to bed. So that little scratch on the top of on his forehead, that has happened.
I did say cap.
You did say cap. You did call cap.
Unless he's woken up middle of the night and decided he wants to chop that turkey's head off at 5 a.m.
Bit of a rogue time to be doing that, I'll be honest. And what,
I'm
did he
not
also
sure.
cut the tree off at that time as well?
Turkey was probably sleeping as well.
Ian ends up changing his story. Shock.
Yeah.
He says that actually I did get up. No, I remember now. It's funny. I remember it now, yeah?
He is an old man.
All I did though, I just went down to the kitchen and just wrote some poetry, Actually, no. And then I did go to my studio as well, which was 250 yards away from their house. So we left.
So he did leave the house.
So he did leave the house. And so he now claims he left the house. Okay. Did he go and kill Sophie, then head to Kilfarda Bridge where he was seen by Marie, and then come home and give the coffee?
Which is crazy because when Marie Farrell said that she saw Ian Bailey on the bridge, he argued that it couldn't have been him at the time because he was asleep in Priory Cottage. And now he's saying he did leave the house to go and get coffee.
Right at the studio.
Go to the
right
studio.
at the studio.
He's writing poetry. Poetry, another word for murder.
You're so
Murder,
smart,
she
Chip.
wrote. Trying to do something here. Is it working?
It's not really vibing with me right now, bro.
Murder, he wrote.
Jules actually, in her statement, came out and said, you know what? There's enough evidence to show that my husband could have done this murder.
Ooh, wow, she dubbed him in. I mean, if even your partner is saying that the evidence is really looking strong against you, that is really not looking good, is it?
Imagine your wife being like, it's not looking great for you, to be honest, mate. No. But look, regardless of all that, he ends up getting released because ultimately the issue was that it was all circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
Meaning there was no hard evidence to prove that he did the murder. It was all just a he said, she said. It was too much chit chat and not enough. Bro, you did it.
On the 27th of January 1998, Ian Bailey is arrested for the second time, but he's released without charge. No charges were laid, as the Director of Public Prosecutions found there was just insufficient evidence, laid against Ian Bailey. There's nothing to really nick him for properly.
They arrested him in the hope that he would just confess.
Yeah,
that's
he'd come
what
forward
it was.
and he'd finally be like, I've had enough, I keep getting arrested here. I did it.
Yeah, I mean, loads of people were onto his case. They were saying, this is the guy that did it, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they arrested him just thinking, oh, do you know what? If we arrest him, he's just going to say, yeah, I did it. But this guy is so committed to it, to his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
That he didn't.
Then in 2007, the Association for the Truth About the Murder of Sophie was created. And then, this is where things start heating up, because in 2008, the French investigation started.
You don't want to mess with the French.
You don't want to play around now, because they're trying to get him. They've got a strong feeling that Ian Bailey did all of this, and they feel like not enough is being done. Not enough action's being taken
in Ireland. Because it's interesting, because the way the Irish law works means that they couldn't really prosecute him due to the evidence. But the way the French law system works is it is very different, and they believe that we do have enough to prosecute him and go to trial against Ian Bailey. Unfortunately for the French, remember Marie Farrell? Farrell?
One of the strongest witnesses.
Well, the most important witness of the case, the one that saw Ian Bailey, or claims to have seen Ian Bailey at the location at Kelfada Bridge at 3 a.m. Well, unfortunately for the French, she actually ended up coming out and saying, I take everything back. I'm recanting my statement. What I said about seeing him at 3 a.m. at the bridge, it was actually all a lie, and in fact, the Irish police forced me to identify that person as Ian Bailey.
Wow! And she was positive in her interview. She said she was positively certain that it's not Ian Bailey.
Yeah, which is really strange, because
that's not what she was saying.
A few years back, she was giving it the big one, saying it was him. Now, what she also did say a while back was that she was being intimidated by Ian Bailey, that he was constantly harassing her and getting her to take back her statement. But she never did until later down the line, when she does actually take it back. Now, loads of people are there like, are you just doing this because he's intimidated you and he's making you feel scared, whatever it might be? And she is adamant that that is not the case. That's not why she's doing it. She's doing it because she believes that the police forced her into it. Now, ultimately, we don't really know. There's no real way for us to know, was she intimidated into doing it, or did she just come out and want to say what the truth was? Because Ian has been adamant this entire time that the police have been trying to stick it on him from the get-go.
Yep.
They have been saying they needed someone to nail it on, and they wanted to choose Ian. So they were trying to almost coerce the entire case to pin it on Ian himself. So by Marie coming out and saying, yeah, by the way, the police sort of made me identify it as you, that man on the bridge as you.
He arrived in the shop and he said that he knew I had seen him on the bridge, and that he wanted me to tell his solicitor that a Gardaí had made me make up the story about him. And if I did that, he would leave me alone. And when I had no intentions of doing that, he made my life hell. And at one stage I thought, he is so big, he could kill me here in 2 minutes and nobody would know.
One of the ways that Marie said she was intimidated by Ian was she was actually in her shop and Ian was in his car, and you know they've made eye contact, and Ian's looked at her and he's made the gesture of cutting his throat whilst looking at Marie. You know, as to say, like,
I'm gonna cut your throat.
If you carry on doing the shit you're doing, like, I'm onto you, I know what you're doing, things could get really bad and messy for you and your family, you know, that kind of vibe. She's obviously quite worried there.
You would be, mate. If there was another guy
really
out there giving you the cutthroat gesture, I'd be slightly concerned.
Yeah, and despite even maybe the police can protect you, do you fully believe that? You never know.
He would make cutthroat gestures like this if he met me on the street, or he would do this. That type of intimidation went on for months and months.
But has she lied then? Because if she's now coming out and saying, by the way, he hasn't intimidated me into doing this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what about all that stuff that you claim that happened to you about, you know, doing that sort of symbol, you know, cutting the throat? Did you just lie about all that before? Like, now she's not even a credible witness anymore because she's been caught in a lie from a previous thing that she's been saying. It's either that or she has genuinely been intimidated into taking it back. So
she can't be believed anymore.
She can't be believed. Nobody can, you can't trust what Marie's saying anymore because she's been going back and forth like this.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely scuppered.
Huge blow for the case.
Huge blow for the case.
One of the reasons why she actually didn't want to come forward at the time was she was with a man at 3 a.m.
She was having an affair.
That wasn't her husband, okay?
Yeah.
Now, when she's on the stand, you know, the judges asked her and said, you need to name this man, and she's refused to name the man. And if you've seen in the Netflix documentary, she actually storms out of the court.
Yeah.
She does eventually get convinced and goes back in, and she gets back up on the stand, and the judge says, you need to name him, you're going to name him for this case. And she names a man, and it's another lie. So she's lied.
Right, so she'd been caught in that lie.
On the stand, she's lied under oath. She's just straight up lied. And yeah, like you said, the credibility of this witness is completely gone. And it's one of the only witnesses they had.
It was the best one they had. The French actually went ahead and issued a warrant for Ian Bailey's arrest in 2010. Now, the Irish Supreme Court ruled against extradition, meaning that he didn't have to be taken over to France to then be arrested and then go through trial, all that. And they actually, again, refused to extradite him in 2017.
I said nothing more is going to happen, so we'd ask you to disperse quietly and quickly. Is that all right?
In May 2019, he was actually tried over in France. So he went to court, they had a trial, but he didn't have to be there for it. And all three of the judges actually found Ian Bailey guilty. So remember, this is in a French court, and the Irish have their own way of dealing with this thing, and they didn't have enough evidence to take him to court in Ireland, but in France, they believed they did, so they had this, you know, entire trial. Now, Ian Bailey actually went as far as calling the entire proceeding just a massive farce. It was all just, one big mess to him. But in October 2020, so, you know, years on after that, the Irish court ruled that Bailey cannot be extradited to France to serve a 25-year sentence. Damn. So if he ever steps foot in France, he's doing a 25-year stretch there.
We've even got a quote here from Ian Bailey that says, if I went to England, I would be immediately arrested on foot of the European arrest warrant. So he can't even go to England. He is literally locked in Ireland, can't leave.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, now the police have gone to Ian Bailey's house. They've been given a list of a bunch of clothing items that they think that the murderer might have been wearing. So they've gone to Ian Bailey's house. They're looking for that kind of stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, they don't find anything. They go to Ian Bailey's studio, and at the back of the studio, what they do find, and this is really strange, is maybe like a massive scorched up like pit of just stuff that Ian Bailey has burnt, set on fire. And in that like fire pit, they even do find like pieces of what could have been a coat. Now, obviously, everything is scorched. It's completely done. Yeah. So it's pretty much nothing there that they can use for evidence.
Mate, I'm just saying, look, you find, like, who just has a big, they've had a fire in the back of their house 3 days after this murder, right? And there was even a witness to say that they did see on the 26th of December, so 3 days after the murder had happened, that she saw a fire in that
like
area.
Smoke coming out from the back of the studio.
My name is Louise Kennedy. I live in Lissacaha. I went for a walk on the 26th of December, St. Stephen's Day, and I saw a fire burning behind the studio.
So there's proof that there's happening, but my biggest thing is, right, so it's 3 days after. Wouldn't you do it as soon after, or is that just a bit too suspicious? Because it's like, okay, wait, why is there a fire going on the day after?
Okay,
or do they leave it a few days to make it seem not as suspicious? And maybe when he caught wind that the police were onto him, he was there like, oh crap, I need to burn this stuff because they're actually onto me. So that, I was just a little bit worried, wondering why was it 3 days after, but I think, he probably just like maybe panicked and thought, oh, actually they're onto me. I need to burn maybe some stuff that he had that was involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, if he did it the day after and the police are finding, small bits of what could have been a coat in this fire, the day after, maybe that's a little bit too bait.
Yeah.
But still, even 3 days after is still very suspicious.
Yeah, and again, they just didn't have any hard evidence. And that was ultimately the biggest reason why this is still a mystery, because just the complete lack of evidence that was going on. One interesting bit of info for you, Chip, is there was a woman who stayed at Ian Bailey's house on Christmas Day. So we're talking 2 days after this happened, and she came out and she said, years later, by the way, she said, I was in the house and I saw a coat in a bucket that I believed to be Ian Bailey's.
I remember, taking a shower. There was a large bucket in the shower. A dark coat soaked in there. Heavy material. I believe it was Ian's coat.
Red flags everywhere.
That is huge red flags. So you're telling me 2 days after the murder,
Yeah.
she's gone and stayed at his house, she's in the bathroom, she sees a bucket on the floor, and in the bucket is the coat, like a coat.
A coat,
which is similar to what the murderer was,
supposedly wearing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Connecting. Why has it taken so long for her to be interviewed? Surely.
Mate, she even says in this interview where she's talking about it, she said it took years for the police to even just get to her. This has got to be one of the first people that you go and chat to. When this happens, she was there 2 days after the murder in probably the prime suspect, the main suspect's house 2 days after the murder. And they didn't think, let's just ask. Let's see what she has to say. Did she see anything in the house that might be a little suspect? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the coat that is believed to be what the murderer was wearing. I don't know.
One of the strange things about Sophie's most recent trip to Cork was that when she was in Paris, she kept asking her friends and family to join her. Now, they said when she goes to Cork, she usually just goes alone. She enjoys to go alone. Maybe it's like an escape. And we've even got a quote here from her auntie saying, it's a mystery because she usually liked to go there alone. And this time she asked practically everyone to go with her. Now the friends and family, I think, were kind of thinking maybe she thought she was in some kind of danger.
Yeah, I wonder if before she actually went, she was like, oh yeah, last time I went, it was a bit creepy and I felt a little bit unsettled there. Does anyone fancy coming with me? And unfortunately for her, no one actually went.
Nobody went, Some of the family members were ill, some of them had stuff to do.
They've come out now and said they do feel a little bit guilty about it, but ultimately there's nothing you can do.
Now, Detective Freezy, this is your speciality here. Some may say palm reading. You're not the biggest fan, but anyway, someone actually did come round and read Sophie's palm and became pale and stating she had a very short lifeline. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Imagine that. Oh yeah, read my palm. Oh yeah, here mate. It said, what does it say, Chip? What's it saying? Oh no. Should we?
It's not good, brother.
Oh no.
Spend time with the family.
Okay, right.
A psychic actually also even came round and saw a photo of Sophie and said, and I'll quote this, "Ooh la la, this young woman will have a violent death when she is 40." Now, Sophie was 39, so if that's true, that's 1 year off. Like that's pretty impressive.
Pretty good.
But what do you think about that? Because I know this is your field.
It's a coincidence.
Is it coincidence? Is it cat? Could be.
I don't know. It has to be coincidence, bro. A forensic detective, noted that there was a full moon overhead on the night that this happened. And once again, to just go along with some of the maybe weirder theories.
The supernatural, maybe?
The supernatural.
Yeah.
There was a full moon, and supposedly, right, Ian Bailey was known to howl at the moon, at the full moon. And, you know, there's a lot of like, what's the words, but like energies and things like that. People believe in a lot of things around the full moon, and some of that stuff is that 2 of the most energetically intensive moments of the lunar cycle are during the new moon and the full moon. While the new moon signifies new beginnings, the full moon signifies an ending or release from the current cycle. Now, is this a coincidence that Bailey howls at the full moon and he's thinking, right, someone must have their life ended, it's a full moon? Or is this all just one big coincidence and we're just getting baited into some waffle? Ian Bailey actually lost a libel case against 6 newspapers in 2003 because he claimed that the newspapers had sort of already painted him as the murderer, despite the fact that, you know, there was no, like evidence for it and things like that. So he said, look, you guys have painted me and defamed me, make me seem like someone that I'm not. But he lost. So sorry,
well,
Ian.
that's gone well.
Yeah, Ian lost that pretty poorly. And what the judge actually said was, Mr. Bailey is a man who likes a certain amount of notoriety, and that he likes perhaps to be in the limelight, that he likes a bit of self-publicity. Which is pretty safe to say. I mean, the guy loves the camera, right? And interestingly enough, he's not a big fan of the Netlfix documentary that was done on him. At all.
Not surprised there, to be honest.
He claims that it's not very objective, and there is definitely like a biased slant to the whole thing. Which is pretty interesting. I mean, to be fair, if I was him, I probably wouldn't like it either, because let's be honest, it paints him in a pretty bad light. But his whole defense, the Irish police just wanted to nail him, and they wanted it to make it seem like him. He was a bit of a weird one, an outcast, a strange bloke in the community, and he was an easy target to select to be the murderer of it. And so his whole thing is that I'm being set up by the police, really. That's his case. I don't know what you think about it, Chip.
Sounds like he's just completely ignoring the, eyewitness statements, the people saying people saying that he confessed, that there's so much like evidence, nothing hard, no photos, nothing like that, no DNA evidence, but the entire community is,
convinced it's him.
Yeah, convinced it's him.
I don't know. This case is interesting, and it is very easy to say, look, there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that points to Ian Bailey, but ultimately it's all based on circumstantial evidence.
Yes.
It's all stuff on this person saw this person saw that, but ultimately nobody saw him do it. There is no hard forensic evidence, and is there a big there's no blatant motive there, there's no huge reason why him killing her would really benefit him. We know he's a bit odd. We know that he likes his poetry and he's into maybe fantasizing about certain things. We know he's been horrible to women in the past with his partner Jules as well, hospitalizing her in domestic violence.
It's hard
but
to put.
It's so tough. Look, mate, if you just watch this, chances are you're probably thinking it's pretty obviously Ian Bailey. Another thing is, there's been no other suspects.
Nope.
Nothing else has popped up. There has really been no one else that someone has gone, it could also be this person. Everything just seems to point towards Ian Bailey.
Is that because maybe they're just so focused on Ian Bailey, they've missed a couple of other things?
Well, that's sort of what he's saying. That's his thing. They're so focused on pinning it on him, they haven't even taken the time to look at anyone else.
I don't see how, unless some new information comes out or a new witness comes forward, how he can get prosecuted,
there
done
has
in
to
the
be
Irish
evidence,
court.
man. There has to be evidence.
Something more needs to come forward. But I do believe, I think I am...
Where are you leaning here?
Well, all the evidence is pointing towards Ian Bailey. The confessions, the teenage boy where he told him that he smashed her head with a rock, he went too far, he said it to his partner, all this kind of stuff.
And not only that, what about the time where he yelled at his mate that came around to tell him about the rumors? He just told almost what would have been the perfect story, and it exactly lines up with how this murder could have happened. We think it could have been Ian Bailey, but ultimately there's just not enough evidence to prove it was him.
Ian Bailey to this day is still walking around free in Cork, the village of Skull, town of Skull. He's walking around, people see him.
He's signing autographs.
Signing autographs. He's quite a celebrity now, which for the wrong reasons, but yeah.
Well, mate, is that what he wanted the whole time? He loves it.
He loves it. He sat there writing his poetry, chilling with the pigeons.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this particular Fellas Mysteries. Guys, if you haven't already, then make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the notification bell, and what I would highly recommend that you guys go and watch the Netflix documentary as well. It is fantastically put together, and it's raised awareness for this really, really interesting case.
Yes, guys, thank you so much for watching. That's been myself, PT Crimes, and Detective Freezy, and we'll see you next Monday at 6 p.m.
Good luck with that one, Fish.
Was it long?
Sorry I'm late, boss. You know how it is sometimes. I got caught chatting to a magician, actually. He lost his magic, though. Chip, you have one line. Just fucking say it.
Bro,
Jesus
I was
Christ.
literally... you missed what I was in the zone, man.